Hello everybody. I apologize for the light in the background, um, but I'm in my kitchen today, and I figured, one of my passions is cooking, and I'm getting ready to start making my dinner for tonight, and I figured that maybe I could walk through what I'm doing in ASMR style. I thought it might be a little interesting, um, so we'll see how it goes. Um, I only have my laptop with me right now. I don't have a portable camera. So this might get a little shaky here and there, and I apologize for that. But the recipe I'm going to be making is called chicken tikka masala. It's an Indian dish, and I'm going to be making it in a slow cooker. So let's get started. The basic ingredients are going to be chicken, onion, garlic, um, gram masala, spice mix, tomato paste, paprika, kosher salt, a can of diced tomato, and a can of coconut milk, and some cilantro for garnish. I usually consume this dish with a side of white rice. Um, so let's get started. I'm going to start prepping the chicken, which I will be doing over here. So this dish is going to be cooked in the slow cooker, which means I have to debone my chicken. Now, as you probably know, chicken is prone to a lot of bacteria like salmonella. So when you're preparing chicken dish, you have to make sure that the surface you're going to be using um, is decontaminated well after. So make sure that you clean it. So the first thing and the most important thing about cooking is a sharp knife. And then we're going to sharpen the knife. And hopefully this may be an ASMR trigger for some. Now this is a honing tool. It is not a sharpener. And that's actually a common misconception. A lot of people think that this is sharpening the knife. And it is not. It is honing. The knife has a very, 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 very thin edge. And what happens with use is that that edge tends to bend a little, and it affects the cutting angle, the cutting capability of it. And when you put it through a honing tool, it straightens out that edge of the knife. So I'm going to open up my chicken here to prepare for deboning. Now for this dish today, I'm using drumsticks, chicken drumsticks. This dish can be made with drumsticks or with thighs. I'm going to be doing drumsticks. I'm going to be deboning it because I'm going to be cooking it in the slow cooker, like I said. This chicken was previously frozen, so what I did is I put it in the regular part of the refrigerator a couple nights ago to start the thawing process. I'll be right back. I gotta put this in the garbage. Alright, now deboning a chicken, it's not really an art. But the easiest way to debone a drumstick is to cut right down the middle here to expose the bone in the center. And just kind of carve your way out of it. It's not the easiest thing to do, but it does work. Once you have the bone exposed like that, you may be able to pry most of it off with the help of your knife. And there we go. A perfect and beautiful bone is out, and our chicken has no more bone. I'm cutting the top because it's got that hard nub, but the rest of it is perfectly good. So I'm gonna go ahead and try that with my next piece. Now, I have like 10 of these to do, so that might get a little boring after a minute here. So I think I'm gonna do like 2 of these in the video, and then I'm going to pause it and come back to it when I get to the spices, because I don't know that you want to hear me talk about deboning a piece of chicken for 20 minutes. As interesting as that may sound. But in the meantime, I can talk a little bit more about ASMR. So I made my first video a little more than a week ago, and I got about 100, 150 views, which is actually more than I've ever gotten on YouTube in my other accounts. So that was quite interesting, and I got some, some good, useful feedback, some nice comments, people telling me, maybe you should try to slow down a little bit, because I do tend to speak fairly fast. So I gotta try and be conscious of that. I think it's my accent, and I've gotten that in my, my day-to-day life also. People say, you speak too quick, too fast. I can't understand you. So it's something that I have to consciously work on in my day-to-day life. Now my wife, she's native, not native, but she was born in the United States, so she doesn't have a thick accent, obviously, like I do, and she doesn't speak Spanish fluently. But she has no problem understanding me. However, we are married, and we have been for several years now, so I think she's probably gotten used to listening to my accent without too much trouble by now. And my children, they were both born in this country, and so they don't speak Spanish fluently yet. Something that I would like to work on with them. But since their mother doesn't speak the language either, it makes it difficult. But we're getting there. Somebody also requested an ear-to-ear whisper in Spanish, which I actually started doing a couple of times. But the problem is that I'm not too good at role playing. I stutter and I get sidetracked. So I don't know. I gotta figure out how to do that. So I will do an ear-to-ear whisper in Spanish at some point, hopefully soon here. But today, when I was getting ready to start cooking, it occurred to me that hey, I have a passion for cooking, and I love describing what I'm doing when I have friends over and stuff like that, because I am a fairly good cook, at least that's what everybody tells me. And so when my friends come over and they stand around while I'm cooking, I usually talk to them about it. I'm a bit of what you would call a foodie. I enjoy good quality food, and I do make a homemade meal for my family every single day. I am the one that cooks in the house. My wife prefers that I do it, so I indulge her and I indulge myself. I mean, this is one of my passions, is cooking. And I don't do it professionally. Well, why don't I do it professionally? Well, I didn't go to cooking school, of course. That's one of the reasons I did go to computer science school. And that's what I do for a living, but I would consider doing this professionally, except it doesn't pay well enough. I mean, if you become like a celebrity chef or something like that, then he probably, then he does, but those are few and far in between. So there's a little bone in all these thighs, going back to the cooking, that I've been careful to remove. It's a little tiny bone, but that's something to keep in mind when you're deboning. To make sure you remove all the bone. Otherwise, it's not such a good deboning job per se. All right. Well, I'm going to finish up cutting up this chicken, and I'll be back when I have finished. Although to you it will seem like a second. All right, I'm getting ready to do my last bone here, my last drumstick. And you know what? I forgot to explain why I'm doing this with drumsticks instead of doing, like a chicken breast, which is already deboned. Well, like I mentioned, I'm going to be cooking this in the slow cooker for around 6 to 8 hours. And there's quite a bit more fat in the drumstick and the thigh than there is in the breast. And it'll hold up better over a longer period of cooking. Otherwise, the chicken breast would get quite mushy by the time the 6 or 8 hours have elapsed. So that's why I chose that. So here we have a beautiful pile of chicken bones, and here we have a beautiful pile of deboned chicken bones. So I'm going to take this to the garbage. And like I said, when you cook with chicken, you have to be fairly sanitary. So I'm going to take my cutting board, and I'm going to come over here to wash it in the dishes. Wash it. So I'm not sure if you want to follow me over there. I guess why not? What's the downside, right? All right, so here I go. So like I have stated, and I hope the water noise is not too loud. If it is, I apologize. It is fairly loud over here, actually. So you know what? I'm going to wash the cutting board, and then I will go back to finish the rest of the stuff. But I'm going to pause it in the meantime because that is a very, very loud noise. All right, I have thoroughly washed the cutting board, and now I'm going to get ready to do the rest of the spices that I need. So like I stated at the beginning, this dish has an onion and some garlic. I always try to, when I cook, to use fresh ingredients as much as I can. There are some ingredients that are not conducive to using fresh, but onions and garlic and things like that are always better fresh. This onion looks like it's bad. So fresh may have to go out the window if I don't have a good one. Let's see. Okay, this one's a lot better. So I'm gonna chop my onion. Now the thing about onions is that a lot of people don't like to use them fresh because it makes your eyes hurt. The trick for that is work fast. Sometimes it'll still get your eyes, but that's a risk worth taking for the flavor. Another thing that's very important about cooking is uniform cuts. You want all your vegetables and the things that you're cooking to be cut fairly to the same size, because they'll cook more evenly that way. If you have really large pieces of one vegetable and very small pieces of another, what's going to happen is the small pieces are going to get overcooked, or the large pieces are not going to cook all the way. So when you are chopping and cutting, try to make uniform cuts all the way throughout as much as you can. trick about working fast. It does not work when you are talking to the camera. And I just started tearing up fairly badly. But that's okay because it's worth the flavor that you get out of it. This is a yellow onion. It's got a nice, sweet flavor and a very nice aroma. And this is a dish of Indian descent, which means it contains a lot of spices. A lot of them are going to be fairly powerful. You have garlic, which is very potent. You have onions, very potent. And gram masala, which is also very, very, very powerful. Gram masala is actually a mixture of several spices. And you can usually buy it already made, or you can make it yourself. In my case, I made it myself. And so it's a mixture of clove and cumin and cardamom and cinnamon and paprika and a few other spices that I can't remember off the top of my head. Now I apologize for these ahead of time, but to open garlic you usually have to give it a good whack to get that jacket off. That's the best way to peel it. I've known people that sit here and like pick at it with their fingers. You can give it a good squish and the jackets pretty much fall off of them. See that? So, well, I thought I was going to have to give it a good whack and make a lot of noise, but I guess just squishing it seems to be working just fine. So like I said, I use fresh ingredients. This is fresh whole garlic. I use a fresh onion. And there are other ingredients that I will be using fresh, also cilantro. Now the cilantro is actually quite interesting because I have a little garden outside with cilantro in it. It's growing. And so that's where I will get my fresh cilantro from. I also grow basil. And believe it or not, I am also growing corn. It's funny because when I planted the corn, my wife I went out there and spent all day in the garden planting my cilantro and my basil and my corn. And my wife comes out there not long ago and looks at the plants and goes, "What are those?" And they're really tall plants. And I go, "That's corn." And she was flabbergasted that I had planted corn in our yard. I mean, we don't live in a rural area. We live in the city. So planting corn is actually quite strange. But I actually have a valid reason to plant the corn, and that is because, well, this is a specific kind of corn that does not get sold here in the US a lot in stores because it's not very sweet. In the US, at least in the US, we consume mostly what we call sweet corn, which is fine, but I want corn that's not specifically sweet. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to caramelize a little bit of the garlic and the onions in the pan, and I'm trying really hard not to make a lot of noise. I apologize for that. So this may not be a very relaxing ASMR video. So I'm going to use a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, just a smidgen, and I'm going to heat that up. Now, one thing that I learned a long time ago is that you always want to season in layers. So you want to make sure the salt, pepper, and things like that are ubiquitous throughout your dish. And that actually means that you'll end up using a lot less salt and things like that that you would have otherwise. So a lot of people say that, oh, well, salt's not good for you. But in reality, what happens when you cook with too little amount of salt, what happens generally is that the people eating, they add their own salt at the end, and they end up adding a lot more salt than you would have added to begin with. So I'm letting the oil heat up a little bit, and once that oil is a little hot, I'm going to add in there my garlic and my onion, and I'm going to saute them a little bit until it has softened. And then I'm going to add some more of my spices in there to kind of liven up that flavor. So I'm going to add in my ginger, my tomato paste in here. Now tomato paste, this is the one I use. Tomato paste is a lot thicker, concentrated, so you require a lot less of, which is good. And then ginger, I'm actually going to use powdered ginger instead of fresh. And the reason for that is that I don't use ginger a lot. Ginger is fairly specific to this type of dishes, usually Indian and Middle Eastern. And I don't cook this every day, or even every week. So instead of keeping fresh ginger that would go bad, I just buy the powder kind. And that's what I use today. So here's my Grand Masala mix. I only have a little bit left, so I'm going to have to make more of that later on after this dish is done. I really apologize if you hear a lot of loud noises. Obviously, this may not be as relaxing as I intended it to be. But I am cooking after all, so I have to make a little bit of noise. I'm going to lower the heat a little bit so it doesn't burn. And I'm still searching for my ginger. Like I said, it's not something I use all the time, so sometimes it's hard to find it in my spice cupboard. I know I have some, because I used it not long ago, but I said not something that I use every day, so sometimes it gets misplaced. I have found pretty much everything except my ginger powder, which is actually starting to become a bit of a problem. Interesting. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't have ginger powder. Maybe I used it all last time and didn't replace it. That could happen. I just hope that it didn't. Because ginger is a pretty powerful aromatic. And there it is. I found it. There. Apologies. I see some smoke coming out because I gotta make sure that I stir my vegetables so they don't stick and burn. Alright, so here's my ginger, and I need a little bit, so would say about a teaspoon or so. Looks like we got a piece here. You got a big chunk that fell in there. So about a teaspoon or so of ginger. And again, I am going to add a little bit more because I think it's starting to stick a little bit and I don't want that to happen. Okay. So yeah, I can already smell the aroma of the onions and the garlic and a little bit of ginger in there. It smells really good. Okay. So now I'm going to add my tomato paste. And I need about a tablespoon or so. A couple tablespoons of tomato paste. Now again, the other thing to keep in mind is when you have been cooking for a long time, exact measurements don't become such an issue. That's why I'm telling you approximately what you need, but I'm actually not using a measuring spoon for it. Okay, so I'm stirring my tomato paste with my onions and my garlic and my ginger. Okay. Okay, perfect. I'm also going to add my gram masala into the pot. And I need about a tablespoon of that, so that's about what I had. And it smells fragrant. It smells delicious. You can smell the cardamom, you can smell the cumin. You can smell the spices. I also need a little bit of paprika. Now the paprika that I like to use is smoked paprika. I need about 2 teaspoons of it. Again, very aromatic, very delicious. You see how this is becoming kind of like a paste in here, which is okay. And now we're going to need a can of diced tomatoes. Once again. Stir that in together, meld all the flavors together. Now the diced tomatoes and the coconut milk are really the only liquid that this recipe calls for, so I am going to need another can of diced tomatoes. And so that's what I'm going to add now. I have another one right here. It's already bubbling. It smells delicious. These cans of diced tomatoes are not seasoned in any way. It's just tomatoes that have been diced and canned. Alright, we're going to let these flavors melt there just for just a second. Just a little bit. There we go. Alright, so once these flavors have started melding, and I'm going to increase the heat a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer the mixture into my slow cooker. I don't know if you can see it, but it's over here. Ow! It's already hot, ready to go. And so, my battery's dying. I better hurry up and go plug it in. There we go. So I just went upstairs and brought the laptop charger. so that I could keep doing this. Alright. So this smells delicious already. You can see it's a uniform sauce. And now I'm going to put it in my slow cooker. My slow cooker, I turned it on a few minutes ago just so that it would warm up. So that my sauce doesn't go into a cold pot. Fantastic. Now, I'm going to give this pan a quick rinse, and then I'm going to use it to give our chicken some color. Now I just rinsed it because there was nothing in there that would affect my chicken too much. Alright. So my sauce is boiling. Everything is good to go. Alright. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to season the chicken and throw it in the pan to brown a little. And for that I'm going to use again a little bit of olive oil, not too much, just enough to coat the bottom of the pan so it doesn't stick. Now remember what I said earlier about seasoning in layers. When I throw the chicken into the pan, I'm going to season it with some salt and some pepper. Now, because I have a pepper grinder, and I'm going to have what I call chicken hands, I'm going to go ahead and pre-grind some pepper. So that I then don't have to use my grinder with my quote-unquote chicken hands. So that's something to keep in mind. You know, if I get chicken grease all over my grinder, then I'm gonna have to wash it. And the reason I use a pepper grinder is because I like fresh pepper. Alright, small is it's pretty hot already, so I'm going to take it off the heat for a second while I finish doing this. Okay. And now this is not something that you absolutely have to do. I mean brown the chicken. But it is something that will definitely add flavor to your dish. So a little salt on each side. A little pepper on each side. And into the pan it goes. Now I'm not looking for cooking here, I'm looking for color. Okay. I'm looking to cook my chicken. I'm looking to give it some pretty colors. Feels really juicy. Helps develop flavor. And I am salting and seasoning each layer so they get all the thickness. It helps ensure that our entire dish has good flavor. Now, if you notice, I'm using one hand for the chicken and one hand for the seasoning. My goal is really just to not touch chicken in both hands. And you can do if you don't, because then you have one clean hand that you can use the veggies here you can use to finish it. Now I ran out of pepper, so I'm going to wash my hands with a little bit of soap and warm water, and then I'm going to grind a little bit more pepper so that I can season the rest of the chicken. Now all I'm looking for here is some color on both sides of that chicken. I'm not sure how this video is actually turning out, so when I'm done doing all this, I will go and watch it. I'm sure that is something that I wouldn't mind putting online. If it is, And then I'll put it because, that. So now you see he's got some color there. I'm just going to flip him on the other side to give both sides a little bit of color. You don't want to cloud your pan. And as the chicken gets that color, I'm going to start putting it in the crock pot with the rest of my sauce that I already made. Now in the meantime, I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup. On the tomato paste, you can't keep it in the can because it'll start to degrade fairly quickly once you open it. So I usually move it to a small container that I know won't oxidize. There we go. You know what I wish I had? I wish I had a Google Glass, because then you could follow me around and see everything I do. Alright. So, tomato paste into a clean container, plastic or glass. I won't oxidize them. Once you've opened the can, you pretty much have about a week or two to use it. Not much more than that, or it will start to go bad. I'm going to put it in the refrigerator, or ice box, as some parts of the world I think still call it. So we have some color in the chicken, so I'm going to go ahead and put it into our sauce. Now this is our chicken, so we need to make sure that it gets fully cooked before we do any kind of trying or tasting. So we have to trust that the fact that we've been layering with flavoring each layer, seasoning each layer, is going to give us the salt and seasoning that we expect and want. So we're going to do this with the rest of the chicken, which is only a couple more pieces. I just made a mistake. I put the salt shaker on the cutting board where I had the raw chicken. So now I'm going to have to wash with soap the bottom of the salt shaker, which is annoying. But it happens. So as you're aware though, when it happens, you're fine. Well, here's the thing with chicken though. Everybody, the cooks on TV, the food administration people, everybody freaks out about chicken. Well, because chicken carries salmonella, because chicken does this and chicken does that. Yes, it does. But if you're thoroughly cooking the chicken, you're fine. And the issue of it being on surfaces in your house, it's a relative thing. I mean, yes, and now it's at the bottom of my salt shaker. Okay. But is it really going to affect them? Probably not. No, still, I am very cautious with it. Because I am cooking for my family, my wife, my 2 children, and I wouldn't want them to get sick. So, I'm going to go wash my hands real quick, and I'm going to go wash the salt shaker with soap. And then, I'm going to get ready to flip that chicken and throw it into my slow cooker. Well, this recipe for Tikka Masala does not call for any more liquid until the end, where you add some coconut milk. Now my problem is that the sauce is already pretty thick, and I've been cooking long enough to know that if I leave that for 8 hours as is, that it's probably going to stick. So I'm going to add to the recipe a little bit of wine, or a little bit of chicken stock. Actually, actually probably chicken stock instead of wine, because what that will do is it'll allow me to increase the cooking time without risking my food would stick. Okay. So I'm going to make some chicken stock now. Again, remember how I said I like to cook with everything fresh? Well, not everything, because I don't have time to make chicken stock every day or every week. So what I do is I use chicken flavored bouillon, which looks like this. You put that in some hot water, put a couple of these things in some hot water, and it gives you a chicken stock like liquid that you can use to infuse your meals with flavor. It does have some salt in it, so you have to be careful that it won't be too salty. But I've used it long enough now that I know that it won't. So just a couple cups of water, a little bouillons, and they go in with the microwave for about 5 minutes. You just want to warm up that water real nice, which will dissolve the bouillons. Alright, so here we have the chicken getting some nice coloring on both sides. And once that is complete, I'm going to go ahead and put it into my sauce again. You want to make sure that all your chicken is covered in that sauce, so it's not just sitting in there on top of the sauce. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that coloration. Again, it's just for my sake. It's not required that you do this. So, there we go. Transfer my chicken to the slow cooker. And now I'm making sure that it's all in the sauce. Alright, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my bouillon in here and mix it all together so that it thins out the sauce a little bit, so that I can cook it for a longer period of time. The original recipe calls for cooking it 4 hours. I need to cook it in 8, so I need to add some more liquid, which is why I'm using the bouillon, like I said. So I'm going to cook this for about 6 to 8 hours. So in the low setting of the slow cooker. And then almost at the end, when it's almost ready, you want to add the coconut milk. The coconut milk is for flavor at the end. So you can refrigerate this also after after you cook it for a couple of days. It should be fine. I am going to read the recipe though real quick, because I thought that the coconut milk was for the end, but maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, 15 minutes before the end of cooking, stirring your coconut milk. Okay. So the coconut milk comes in a can like this. It's unsweetened. It does have a little bit of a sweet flavor naturally, but it is not. It doesn't have added sweeteners to it, which is what we want. So, aside from making a bit of a mess, this is a pretty easy dish to make. The gram masala, again, is a mixture of spices. Like I said, I'm going to see if I can collect some of the spices that are in the gram masala, so you can see them all in one place.
well, you know what? I can't find half of them. So there's coriander, little nutmeg, cloves. Um, there's also cardamom, cinnamon, cumin, turmeric. Actually, no, I don't think it has turmeric. Either way, you can look for the recipe online, uh, which is what I did to make my own gram masala because I couldn't find it in the store. It's supposed to be a fairly popular Indian spice, but they didn't have it at the um, regular store that I go to. So I just bought the separate ingredients and made it myself. Alright, so here's the chicken bouillon. You can see how it's turned yellow because it's dissolved mostly. And so I'm going to stir a bit, make sure that everything is indeed dissolved. I'm going to add a little bit of that to my recipe. Again, this adds a little bit more flavor, a little bit more salt, probably, and it just gives me more sauce, which it will then thicken up as it cooks. Okay, beautiful. All my chicken is covered in this sauce, and we are all ready to go. So I'm going to cover it up and let it simmer for about 6 to 8 hours. And then at the end I will add the coconut milk that I showed you earlier and stir it together and put it back on. And the fresh cilantro I'm going to get from the garden at the end and also stir it in. Fresh herbs like cilantro, basil and things like that, you probably don't want to cook them too much because they lose a lot of their flavor. So usually those herbs are they're for flavor, but they're for flavor when you eat them fresh. So now my chicken tikka masala is cooking, and I gotta clean up this mess, which I doubt you want to see. And then I'm gonna go upstairs and start working. Like I said, about 6 hours, I'm gonna come back and I'm going to add the coconut milk. I'm gonna stir it up, and in the end, when it's all said and done, and I have cooked it, I will take a picture of it and I will add it to the link, to the YouTube link later on. And let me know what you guys thought of this. If this is something that worked for you, if this is something that you found interesting, that relaxed you in any way, that it triggered your SMR in any way, then let me know. And I will do more of this because I do cook every day, generally a different recipe. So hopefully this was mildly amusing. Have a good one, everybody.